What's going on, world? Another day, another blessed day. We here again, back with you on another live. Going to talk about mental health, mental well-being, mental awareness. Also, we're going to talk about captive in Connecticut in regards to a case that's going on where I believe a lady had her stepson captive for over a decade. About over a decade. And he was captive, lost weight, wasn't taken care of, and all that stuff. So you gotta think about where his mental health is, and also where his stepmother mental health was while she was doing this. In addition to his, I believe, half siblings, so he had some sisters in the household while this all was going on, while he was captive in Connecticut. Very interesting story. It actually getting national to international views and coverage and stuff like that. Countries such as Germany is even over here covering the story. Got people from Australia, the UK, different kind of news outlet is over here, and that all it comes down to, the mental health of that stepmom, in addition to the mental health of everyone who was around her who knew about it. So I'm just come on here, we're gonna chop it up about mental health. We're gonna talk about the captured in Connecticut, or captive in Connecticut, where the lady was holding her stepson captive, and basically out of his will, to the point where, he couldn't basically take it no more. So final resort, he ended up setting the house on fire, and fire rescues came, and they ended up finding him, and they started doing some investigations. Come to find out, she had him captive for over a decade now, barely feeding him. His health was down, and so now she's going to court in regards to that case. And it's just a big thing, like captive in Connecticut for all those years in just a small room or small dwelling with barely anything to eat, barely saw the outdoors or anything like that. Cody 4K, what's going on, cuzzo? What's going on, cuzzo? Big shout outs to you. Thanks for being on here. We need to get up in things. What else? So that right there was like, mental health is like a serious problem. People probably like knock it to the side or whatever like that, but just that alone, 10 years holding a person captive, out of their control, and even his father knew about it. I guess the father passed away last year, and the question is now, what was she exactly doing within the household where the sisters were basically scared? Their mental health was screwed up because they didn't want to report it or report anything that the mother was doing. She probably had their mentals up, Yes, big ups. Definitely, mental health is one of the biggest issues. People not addressing it, and you can see people going through different things where they're not even talking about it, and mentally, chemically imbalance, everything, So big ups going out to you. Big ups, Jarrell. Everybody who's on here. We on here talking about mental health and how it needs to be addressed more, because people are doing drastically different things. It probably was being done before, but now it seems like over the years, these things are being done more and more. I'm not sure if technology is messing with our brain waves and our mental thinking. People not really thinking logically about their steps or their outcome. You have to be aware of people's mental health, because you never know how a person will react, Cody says, every man thinks it's easier to just give up because the world believes it's easier to just make somebody new than repair the, oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. I feel you on that one. Jarrell Mack say, that's correct, sir. Yes, for real. So going back to what Cody said, people do really think that it's easier to like quit and give up and escape it instead of facing it. But once we get over that hurdle and we try to realize and work on the ability of overcoming those obstacles and learning that we can make it through, like, we can get a long way. But we just have to be able to be willing to go up at those adversity, because going up against those adversity, especially when your mental is like not really right, you can just have one thing that knock you off your square, and it can mess up the whole day, the whole week, the whole month, the whole year, you know? So I just want to come on here and talk about mental health and bring more awareness to mental health, because I think it's one of the things that's really being ignored. We talk about our physical health, we talk about dental health, you talk about your eye health, but what's going on with the mind, with the brain? You know, one of the most important tools that we have, and how we control it and how we can keep a balance, you know? I did a live before talking about the yin and the yang and how life is, you know, basically navigating through the yin and yang, and that's part of having the right mental. Like, even if you're out there and you're not really sure about your mental health, go talk to somebody, because more than likely it's something that's probably bothering you. It's probably something bothering somebody else. And if those things are not really addressed, or if it's like swept under the rug, or if you're not even aware of the whole idea that you're faced with some kind of mental health issues, or and it's nothing bad, because that's the thing, it's a stigma against people thinking that, okay, if you're dealing with mental health, you go see a psychologist, if you go see a counselor, if you talk to somebody, if you get some kind of counseling, that, you know, you're what they want to say, cuckoo or whatever, like crazy. But if you really think about it, the majority of us are crazy, because we're only using what they said, only 3 to 5% of our brain power. So just think about, if you get that control of your mental, if you're able to be aware of your mental and be able to navigate through the obstacles when you're faced with a mental challenge. And mental challenge, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be something that happened in the past where your mental chemical is imbalanced. You know, sometimes people do crazy things, unthinkable, like that lady, like I said, captive in Connecticut. She kept her stepson captive for years, over a decade. Barely no food, none of that, right? Lack of food, lack of going outside, lack of being around other people. So now his mental is even screwed up from her mental, right? From her mental state, whatever she's been through in the past, or whatever caused her to do this, or like what exactly made her do that to that young man, where not even young man anymore, because I believe he's in his 30s. Well, he's still a young man, but in his 30s, and she's been keeping him captive since he was in his teens, like 18, 19. His biological mother said, oh, she thought that when he became an adult or whatever, he got his, what do they call it, sovereign or whatever, he just decided to go out in adulthood, and she thought he was somewhere else out in the country. She didn't even know he was in Connecticut. So, and mental health, man. So now, the stepmother mental health is messed up. We can tell that because of what happened, even though they said she's not guilty until proven guilty within the court of law, whatever like that. But just by the circumstances itself shows that she's guilty, right? They want to bring charges up against even the sisters, because they didn't talk about it or let it be any kind of awareness about it, right? So all that we got to talk about. Mental health is no joke. Anxiety, depression, and no joke. Like, having the right mind state is something to work on. Having the right mind state is something to work on, and being aware of your mental health, having some ideas of how you can control your mental health, getting over anxiety, getting through depression, just bringing awareness of it, right? And maybe it's not just you, maybe it's somebody else that needs that talking, that needs that counseling or something like that, right? Clarity, freedom of the mind. Yes, sir, for real. Hold on, Cody 4K said, what he said. Oh, PT. Yo, thank you for bringing that up. Because it's so many of us that have some form of PTSD that it's not even talked about or addressed or bringing awareness or getting it checked out or even talk about how that person have PTSD and how can we address it and what are some of the solutions for a person who's suffering from PTSD, and also being aware that you have PTSD, because some of us out here have PTSD and don't even know it until that certain circumstance or that certain situation end up happening where it triggers something in our mind and makes us like do certain acts or act a certain way, or you I can't even explain it. Like when you faced with PTSD and you going through that moment, man, it's like I can't even explain it. And a lot of us go through it, just not address it, or we don't even know that it's PTSD, right? Or do we? And something happened and it gets triggered. You didn't even know what happened. Then somebody say, "Oh, you blanked out, or you blacked out, and you did this and you did that." No, certain things happen where it triggered me. I'm not sure where you guys come from, but even in the urban area, some people are suffering from PTSD just because of gun violence and gun violence happening around them or to them, or and it probably wasn't even meant for them, but they end up getting hurt, or people losing their life, and then that affects the whole family, and it's a lot of things that's going on. But we gotta keep control of our mental. We gotta focus on navigating our mentals and the mental health and things, right? Running some errands, got a few